Mom, it's probably better if you don't come to the wedding, my son Michael said over the phone, not in anger. Not shouting. Just as if you were talking about the weather. I was standing at my little kitchen table, one hand on the back of a chair, the other resting on the pale blue dress I'd laid out, the dress I had already bought for his big day. Michael, I asked, my voice catching, what do you mean, don't come? He paused. I heard traffic, a car door closing, someone laughing near him, life going on as if he hadn't just sliced something open inside me. It's just, things are really tense, he said. Laura is stressed. Her parents are particular. They're paying for everything, and they want it small. Just their side. No complications. No complications. That was me. His mother. A complication. I looked down at the envelope on the table. Inside it was a check I had written to help with the wedding. It wasn't much compared to what Laura's parents could do, but it was what I had. I had been saving a little every month since he first told me he was serious about her. I thought I was family, I said quietly. You are, Mom, he replied, too fast. Of course you are. But you know how things have been. The argument at the shower, the comments you made about the budget. Laura thinks, she thinks it's better if we just keep things smooth that day. Smooth. Like I was a wrinkle to be ironed out. I stared at the dress on my table. The price tag was still tucked inside the collar. I had tried it on twice already, just to be sure I could still zip it up on my own. I'd imagined where I might sit in the church, how I would watch my son say his vows. Now I pictured a row of chairs with one empty space where a mother should have been. I don't want to fight with you, Michael said. His voice softened. I just want Laura to have the day she dreamed of. She's under a lot of pressure. Her mom said. He stopped himself, but he didn't need to finish. I could hear the message underneath. Her mother said I didn't fit. I walked over to the counter and turned off the kettle. It had been whistling for a while, but I hadn't heard it until then. The shrill sound in my kitchen felt suddenly too loud, so I grabbed the handle with a shaky hand and moved it aside. How will you explain my absence? I asked. They know you're not comfortable around big crowds, he said. We'll just tell people you're not feeling well. Mom, please, don't make this harder. Harder for whom, I wondered. I ran a finger along the hem of the dress, feeling the tiny stitches. I had picked a soft, modest style so I wouldn't draw attention away from the bride, as Laura once joked. I'd laughed with her then, wanting so badly to belong. All right, I heard myself say. If that's what you want, I won't come. Silence. Then a relieved breath. Thank you, Mom. I knew you'd understand. We'll send you pictures. Maybe we can do a dinner later, just us. Pictures. A dinner later, like some consolation prize for a mother who was suddenly optional. When I hung up, the kitchen felt strange, like someone had quietly moved all the furniture 3 inches to the left. Nothing looked quite right. The invitation on the table stared up at me. Thick paper. Golden edges. My name carefully printed. They hadn't thought to print a new one without it. I sat down and tried to drink my tea, but it had gone cold. My hands wrapped around the cup anyway, searching for warmth that wasn't there. Somewhere in this same town, flowers were being ordered, chairs were being arranged, music was being chosen for a day I was no longer part of. A day I had imagined since I first held him as a baby and kissed his tiny fingers. Back then, I pictured myself smoothing his tie, wiping away a nervous tear, telling him how proud I was. Instead, I sat alone at my kitchen table, listening to the quiet hum of the refrigerator and the ticking of the clock on the wall. I stared at the dress until the colors blurred. I didn't know it then, but that phone call would lead me to hold a wedding of my own. Not for the world to see. Not with music and decorations. A quiet ceremony, just for a mother who refused to let her heart be left out. If you've ever felt invisible in your own family, stay with me, you need to hear what happened next. It didn't start with that phone call. Looking back, the cracks had been forming for a while. They were small at first, like hairline fractures in a plate you keep washing and putting back on the shelf, convincing yourself it's fine. I met Laura 3 years before the wedding. Michael brought her over one Sunday afternoon, nervous and proud. She was pretty, polished, with a careful smile and a firm handshake. Her parents owned a small business in town, and she talked about growing up with vacations and private schools like it was the most ordinary thing. I served pot roast in my old chipped dishes, the ones I'd had since the kids were small. They were clean, but worn. I noticed Laura's eyes linger on a crack in one of the plates. "This looks delicious, Mrs. Collins," she said politely. "It's just Lydia," I replied, smiling. "Mrs. Collins is my ex-husband's new wife." We all chuckled, but something tightened in Laura's face. It was quick, but I saw it. She was not used to old divorces and patched-up families. Her own parents were still married, still living in the same big house they'd always had. At first, I tried too hard. I can admit that now. I didn't have money to offer, or a big house to host dinner parties. What I did have was history with my son, and a lifetime of small, simple ways of showing love. So I cooked. I listened. I asked questions. Maybe I asked too many. When they got engaged, I cried. Right there in the diner where Michael told me, over a plate of eggs and toast. "Mom," he said, half laughing, "you're embarrassing me." "I'm allowed," I replied, dabbing my eyes with a napkin. "I'm your mother. This is my job." We hugged in the parking lot. I thought we were on solid ground then. But weddings bring out things in people. First, it was about the venue. "I always pictured a church wedding," I said one day, sitting at my kitchen table with Laura and her laptop. "You know, walking down the aisle, stained glass, that sort of thing. But it's your day. I just want you two happy." "Oh, we're thinking of the vineyard," Laura replied. "It's more, us. And my parents already put down a deposit." Her parents. Those words became a chorus. Her parents were paying for the venue, her parents knew a florist, her parents hired a photographer. I felt myself shrinking each time she said it. Not because I wanted control, but because I wanted to matter. A few weeks later, I brought out a small velvet box. "This was my mother's ring," I said, my fingers lingering on the faded fabric. "I thought maybe you could use the stone, make it your own. Only if you like it, of course." Laura opened the box. The ring wasn't large. The gold was worn thin in places, but the stone still caught the light. "It's lovely," she said carefully. "Really? But Michael already bought my ring. And, my mom kept all of hers for my sisters and me. She'd be hurt if I didn't use one of those. Maybe I could wear this sometimes, though?" She closed the box and set it on the table between us. Not rejecting it, exactly. Not embracing it either. It sat there like a symbol of where I fit, close, but not quite part of their picture. I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. Then came the bridal shower. It was held at Laura's parents' house. I wore my nicest blouse and brought a basket I had put together myself, hand-embroidered dish towels, a small recipe book with my own notes in the margins, a set of wooden spoons. Simple things. Domestic things. Things I hoped would say, "You're family now." Most of the gifts were from high-end stores. Shiny appliances, crystal glasses, sleek sets of knives. My basket looked out of place among all the polished boxes and tissue paper. I remember standing in the hallway, taking my coat off, when I heard Laura in the kitchen with one of her bridesmaids. "She means well," Laura was saying. "But she's a lot." You know? She cried when we told her we were engaged. At a diner. In public. And she keeps talking about how in her day they did things differently. My mom thinks she's going to make a scene at the wedding. My fingers went numb on the buttons of my coat. The bridesmaid laughed softly. Well, at least your parents are handling most of it. You can't control his mom. I stood very still and listened to the clatter of dishes, the rustle of gift bags. I felt like an intruder in a house where I was technically invited but not truly welcome. I thought about turning around and leaving. Instead, I took a breath, straightened my shoulders, and walked into the kitchen with a smile. "Hi, honey," I said to Laura, pretending I hadn't heard. "Where should I put this?" She spun around, cheeks flushing. I saw guilt flicker across her face. "Oh, Lydia," she said quickly. "Your gift. You didn't have to do that. You're so sweet." Sweet, not respected, not included sweet. That night, at home, I sat in my living room with the lights off. The house was quiet except for the distant sound of a train. I thought about calling Michael, telling him what I'd heard. Then I imagined his voice, tired, torn between his fiancée and his mother. So I said nothing. For a while. Weeks passed. Plans moved forward. I bought the blue dress and tried on shoes in my tiny bedroom, looking at myself in the mirror and wondering if I would look too old next to all the young, glowing bridesmaids. One afternoon, there was a mix-up about the rehearsal dinner. I'd been told one time, then discovered through a casual comment from Michael that the time had changed. "You weren't going to tell me?" I asked, trying to keep my tone light. "Oh, Mom, I thought Laura texted you," he said. "Everything's been crazy. There's a group chat. Maybe you weren't added?" Maybe you weren't added. That night, alone in my kitchen, I did finally call him. "Michael," I said, "I feel like I'm extra. Like I'm someone you're trying to work around instead of with." He sighed heavily. "Mom, please. It's not like that. Laura feels judged by you. She thinks you don't approve of how we're doing things. And my future in-laws keep asking if you're going to be dramatic." "Dramatic?" I repeated. "Because I cried when you told me you were getting married? Because I offered you my mother's ring? Because I asked about a church ceremony?" He didn't answer right away. "Maybe we just need some space," he said finally. "I can't keep everyone happy." We hung up without really resolving anything. I went to bed with a knot in my stomach and the taste of unshed words in my mouth. I didn't know then that the next call from him would uninvite me from the wedding entirely. After that call, I stumbled through a few days in a fog. Everything felt muted. Colors, sounds, even flavors. I poured cereal in the morning and stared at it until the milk turned the whole bowl soggy. At church, I sat in the back pew, not trusting my voice to join in the hymns. When the service ended, my friend Margaret slid into the seat beside me. "You've looked like a ghost these past Sundays," she said gently. "What's going on, Lydia?" I hesitated. Saying it out loud made it feel more real. But the words came anyway. "They left me out of the wedding," I said softly. "My own son. They're getting married next Saturday, and I'm not wanted there." Margaret's eyes filled with a quiet kind of anger on my behalf. Not loud, not dramatic. Just firm. "Did you scream at him?" she asked. I shook my head. "No. I told him if that's what he wanted, I would respect it." She nodded slowly. "Good. Because here's the thing, Lydia. A wedding is one day. Being a mother is a lifetime. You can't make him choose you. But you can choose how you carry yourself through this." "How do I carry myself through being left behind?" I whispered. "With your head up," she replied. "You don't have to pretend it doesn't hurt. But you also don't have to beg for a seat at a table that should have been yours by default. Her words settled in me like a stone in a river. Solid. Unmoving. The water of my emotions kept rushing around them, but there was something to hold on to now. That night, I went home and took the invitation off the refrigerator. I sat at the table and traced the fancy letters of their names with my finger. I could have torn it up. Burned it. Thrown it away. Instead, I placed it in a drawer with my old photo albums. Then I did something that surprised even me. I opened my closet and took out the blue dress. I hung it on the outside of the door, where I would see it every day. Not as a reminder of the pain, but as a reminder that I had planned to show up in love. Maybe I still could. Just not in the way I expected. A thought came to me quietly, like a small, shy thing. If they didn't want me at their ceremony, perhaps I could make one of my own. Not out of spite, not as a performance, but as a way to honor what I was losing, and what I was keeping. My place as his mother. In the days leading up to the wedding, I started preparing for my own quiet ceremony. I bought a small bouquet of white flowers at the grocery store. I picked out a simple candle and a glass jar. I took down the old photo albums from the shelf and wiped the dust off with my sleeve. I wrote in my journal, page after page, pouring out things I would have said in a speech if I'd been given a microphone. Stories of Michael as a little boy. The first time he scraped his knee. The night he had a fever and I stayed up with a cold washcloth on his forehead. The day he left for college and hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. Every night, before bed, I reminded myself, you cannot control your adult children. You can only control how much poison you let stay in your own heart. I thought that would be enough. I thought I'd simply get through the day. But the morning of the wedding, something deeper shifted. On the day of the wedding, I woke up before the sun. The house was quiet. The air felt heavy, like it does before a storm. I lay there for a moment, staring at the ceiling, and thought, my son is getting married today. With or without me, this day is happening. I got up and made coffee. The simple sounds of morning, the drip of the machine, the soft click of the switch, felt louder than usual. Part of me wanted to stay in my robe and pretend it was any other Saturday. To push the day down into the drawer with the invitation and close it. But another part of me, the part Margaret had spoken to, refused. I took a shower. I put on the blue dress. I fixed my hair as best I could, smoothing down the stubborn pieces that wouldn't stay in place. I put on a little lipstick, even though no one was there to see it. Then I set up my living room. I cleared the coffee table and laid a white cloth over it. On top, I placed the bouquet of flowers in a simple vase. I set the candle next to it and lit the wick, watching the small flame catch and grow. On the other side, I opened one of the photo albums to a picture of Michael when he was about 6 years old, missing his front teeth, grinning at the camera with ice cream smeared on his face. I checked the time. If the schedule hadn't changed, they would be saying their vows right about then. I sat down on the couch and took a deep breath. All right, I whispered into the quiet room. Let's have a ceremony. It was clumsy, what I did. There were no perfect words, no practiced speeches. Just a mother in a blue dress, sitting alone in a small house, trying to make peace with reality. I bless you, Michael, I said softly. I bless your marriage. I bless the life you are choosing, even if you don't want me as part of its beginning. I hope you know, somewhere inside you, that you were loved from the moment I knew you existed. My voice broke, but I didn't stop. I released the version of this day I carried in my heart, I continued. The version where I pin your boutonniere and straighten your tie. Where you hug me before you walk down the aisle. I let that go now, not because it doesn't matter, but because it does. And I refuse to let its absence poison whatever time we have left. Tears slipped down my cheeks. I let them fall. I promise myself, I whispered, that I will not chase you. I will not beg for crumbs of attention. I will answer when you call. I will show up if you truly need me. But I will also build a life that is more than waiting by the phone. The candle flame flickered and steadied. I sat there for a long time, just breathing, letting the ache move through me instead of stopping it at the door. When I finally stood, my legs felt shaky, but there was a new kind of strength in my spine. On the coffee table, the photo of little Michael smiled up at me. I bent down and touched his face with 2 fingers. I did my part, I told that little boy. I raised you as best I knew how. The rest is yours now. In the weeks that followed, the world did not suddenly turn soft and kind. I saw photographs online of the wedding. Someone had tagged Michael, and there they were, the vineyard, the white chairs, the happy couple under an arch of flowers. There were family pictures, too. Laura's parents, her sisters, cousins, friends. I enlarged one photo, scanning it automatically for my own face, even though I knew it wouldn't be there. It still hurt. Of course it did. But when the hurt rose up, I had something to hold it in. That quiet ceremony in my living room. Those promises I had made to myself. Months later, there was a knock on my door. When I opened it, Michael was standing there. No phone call, no text beforehand. Just my son on my front step, looking older and more tired than I remembered. "Hi, Mom," he said. For a moment, all the words I had practiced disappeared. I just looked at him, memorizing the lines on his face, the way his shoulders slumped. "Hi," I replied. I moved aside. "Come in." We sat at the kitchen table, the same one where I had laid out the blue dress. I poured us both coffee. The silence between us was thick, but not empty. "I don't know how to say this," he began, staring into his cup. "I messed up. We messed up. The wedding, the way we handled things with you, it wasn't right." I didn't rush in to reassure him. I let the words sit there. "Laura?" I asked quietly. "She knows," he said. "Her mom pushed things. I let her. I was scared of ruining the day. But leaving you out," his voice cracked. "You're my mother. There's no excuse." I felt a mix of emotions, sadness, relief, anger, tenderness. They swirled together in a way I couldn't neatly separate. "I was hurt," I said simply. "Deeply. But I also know weddings bring out the worst in people sometimes. And you're the one sitting here now, owning it. That matters." He looked up, eyes wet. "Can you forgive me?" Forgiveness. The word hung in the air like a fragile ornament. "I don't want to carry this bitterness around," I said slowly. "It's too heavy. So yes, I forgive you. But I also need you to understand something, Michael." "What?" he asked. "I won't chase a place in your life anymore," I replied. "If you want me in it, you will have to make room and keep it open. I love you. That's not changing. But I am done proving that I deserve to be where any mother should be naturally." He nodded, tears slipping down his face. "That's fair," he whispered. We sat there for a moment in the quiet. It wasn't magical. It didn't erase what had happened. But something shifted, just a little. A door that had been closed all the way opened a crack. Years later, when their son Noah was born, I got another phone call. "Mom," Michael said, his voice full this time, overflowing, "we're at the hospital. Can you come?" I pulled on my coat with hands that shook for a different reason. When I walked into that hospital room and saw my grandson for the first time, wrapped tight and blinking at the world, I felt something soften in me again. Laura looked up at me, her face pale and tired. There were tears in her eyes. "Lydia," she said, voice hoarse. "I'm glad you're here." It wasn't an apology, not in so many words. But there was something in the way she said it that I recognized, a crack in her certainty, an understanding that some lines we crossed could not be uncrossed, only lived with. I stepped closer and touched Noah's tiny hand. "Welcome," I whispered to him. "You're joining a very complicated family, little one. But you are loved. Very much." Now, when I sit in my living room and look at the photos on my shelf, there is one from their wedding. Michael and Laura under that flower arch, smiling at each other like the rest of the world has disappeared. Next to it, there is another picture. Not professional, not posed. Just me on the couch in my blue dress, taken by Margaret when she stopped by that afternoon to check on me. A candle on the table. Flowers in a vase. A faint, tired smile on my face. 2 ceremonies. One seen, one unseen. I used to look at those photos and feel only the sting of what I missed. Now, I see something else too. In the first picture, my son starts his life as a husband. In the second, I start my life as a woman who refuses to disappear into the background of her own story. The pain didn't vanish. But it no longer defined me. As I water the plant on my windowsill in the mornings, light spilling across the kitchen floor, I sometimes think about that day. About the way I sat alone, holding my own quiet ceremony, choosing dignity over desperation. Life doesn't always give mothers the place they deserve. But we can still choose how we stand. And we can still choose to bless our children, even from a distance, without letting their choices erase our worth. If this story touched your heart, you can like this video, leave a comment, or share it with someone who might need to hear it. If you've ever felt treated like a burden or left out of your own family's big moments, my next story may speak to you even more. And if you'd like more stories like this, you're always welcome to subscribe to this channel, Lydia's True Stories.